Ko te wehi kai hoa te timatanga o te whakaaro nui, kei te wehi ki tōne ingotapu. Kia tau I hoa na manaakitanga ki runga ki te kiingi Māori, tuhatia po te tau te wherawhero te tuawhitu. Ki tana whare kāhui ariki, heo tira, ngā mana, ngā wehi, ngā ihi, ngā tapu huri noa, tēnei hui topa, tēnei hui ata. Kei ōku rangatira, tēnā koutou, haere mai. Haere mai I te whakawhitiwhiti kōrero, whakawhitiwhiti whakaaro. Ki tēnei pare kura, e ki ianei he pakanga o runga O-Rākau, te pāonga ki runga I o koutou I o tātou tūpuna. Tēnā koutou, kia ora hui hui tātou katoa pai mārire, kia tātou katoa. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening to have a look at the return of the O-Rākau Battle site. Hopefully, all of those of you who might be caught in the weather event are safe, warm and well. And those who we hold dear, who might also be caught, they too be safe, warm and well. Here in Hamilton, we have only caught the edges of the cyclone and feel very, very much for those who are homeless, who are feeling the ravages of this national emergency. Kia tau I honga manaakitanga a te wā hingaru, ki runga, kia koutou, rātou, tātou katoa. Our agenda this evening is that we have started with a karakia and with a little mihi, but we'll turn now to our presenters this evening for them to introduce themselves very shortly, and then we'll turn to the business at hand. Kia ora katoa. Let's start with Paul.
Kia ora koe, Tom. Te mea kia koe tuku te arawhata ki te wahera, tau tuku nā mihi. Ia kia rata mai noho tau mahana tēnei wā. Paul Meredith, no Ngāti Kapatui. Long interest in O-Rākau, researching the history of O-Rākau for a long time. And I can remember going there, we scout the river, the Parawera. We stop in at O-Rākau, and our auntie stopping talking about O-Rākau. And I remember Kāwhia coming when I was at university about 30 years ago to talk about O-Rākau. So kia ora tā koutou.
Thank you, Paul. Kāwhia.
Ai, ngā mihi rā e tame, mō tō mihi, mō tō karakia I tēnei ahi pō. Ko kāwhia tēnei mihi nei kia koutou e Paura, Glenn, kia koutou e mātaki-taki mai nā, I o koutou wā kāinga. O Ngāti Pare te kaua tēnei, o Ngāti Pare Waiono anō hoki. Tēnā koutou.
Thank you, Kāwhia. Glenn.
O tautoko anau ngā mihi ko mihia, hoi anō I te iwi tēnā koutou, ko ai au, hiuri ahau o Ngāti Hikairo, Ngāti Apakura o Tira o Waikato Maniapoto ko Glenn Tuhu Tōku Ingoa. So here supporting Tom with this very important mahi. Kia ora.
And to finish with me, Tom Roa. Hapu huhua. If I say one hapu, the other hapu says, hey, what about us? Hoi no, Ngāti Maniapoto, kaumātua member of the Nehe Nehe Nui Trust, and in that respect, very grateful to Kāwhia, Glenn and Paul for joining us this evening to work us through this matter at hand. And in terms of our agenda, let's now turn to the presentation and begin with Kāwhia to kick us off with their presentation. Thank you.
There is a slide which will come up shortly. There we go. I'm going to touch on the first two bullet points, but before I get to them, I think it's important to give context to where we are today, and it goes back somewhat to 2010, when a very small group of us were invited to attend the Waitara commemoration of the 150 years of the opening of the war in Taranaki. We went down there, we were active participants in the commemoration, and came home with a view that we should be doing something for O-Rākau, which was then in 4 years' time from 2010. So Lewis Te Rongonui Hitiri Pairata and I, in April of 2010, held the first of what was to be a number of annual commemorations. And we had that at the site. We also went over to Rewi's Reserve and had a cup of tea afterwards at the Kihikihi Town Hall. We had about 50 participants turn up to the day. Previous to the day, I circulated a paper, and we had a hui after lunch and discussed and received the paper. And it was at that hui that myself, Lewis, Dr. Robert Joseph, Thea Priestley, and Hazel Barnes were appointed to the O-Rākau Working Establishment Group. And our job was to begin in earnest with some long-term planning for the 150th commemoration, to begin to explore the return of the land, which was then in private hands, and to continue with annual commemorations on site. So we did that, and in November of 2011, we established the Battle of O-Rākau Heritage Society as a result of a hui in Mokai, a national hui in Mokai earlier in that year. The national hui at Mokai gave us the platform to proceed with a number of key objectives. One which was to work with iwi to establish a plan for the 150th anniversary, also to begin to explore the concept for the erection of a more appropriate memorial on site. The third objective was to continue to advance the notion of working in a collaborative manner to achieve the remainder of our objectives. So we did that in 2011. And we made a concerted effort to bring on side the local landowners, who were Sue and Chris Kay, whose permission we sought every year to host the annual commemoration on what was then their farm. Excuse me. Over the following years, Sue and Chris became very good friends of ours, such to a point that in early 2013, they advised that they were looking to put their farm up for sale onto the open market, which was a bit of a shock to us, because our relationship had become quite close, and we involved them in all the commemorations on the battle site that we organised. But that bit of a shocker turned into an opportunity, because a few days later I called Chris and asked him that an opportunity presented itself, and that maybe he should write to the minister and offer the minister the first right of refusal over the property before they put it onto the open market. He thought that was a good idea, and in actual fact, he wanted to divest himself of the asset, and this seemed to be a good opportunity to get that done on his behalf, but also one way to bring the Crown into the picture rather than let the property go onto the open market. There was no way of telling whom would buy the property if it was put onto the market. Anyway, so that's as that. Subsequent to that, we began in earnest to develop a working relationship with Waikato Tainui, and we're lucky that Tom was the chair then, with Raukawa, with Vanessa Eparaima, with our board Uncle Tifa, who was the then chair, with the Waipa District Council, and with others moving towards the 150th anniversary. Sorry, others meaning TPK, who were a significant contributor to the event. So the 150th anniversary came in 2014, and our plan was to leverage the day to put as much political pressure on the Crown so that it would take the opportunity to intervene and purchase the land with a view to handing the land back to iwi when the purchase was done and dusted. That was the plan. Shortly after the 150th anniversary, Chris and Sue Kay got a letter from the Minister advising that the Crown were interested in purchasing their farm. And at the time, Minister Finlayson was not only the Minister of Treaty Negotiations, he was also the Minister of Maori Development, or Deputy Minister of Maori Development, and also the Minister of Culture and Heritage. So all of those things came to bear. And after a number of months, they had received, this is Mr. and Mrs. K received this, that the transaction to purchase the property was going ahead. And so the Crown in late 2015 went ahead and transferred the land from Mr. and Mrs. Sue Kay into the Crown holding. And we were really, really happy with that. So that's a bit of a background, very, very short and brief. There's a lot that has been gone in between that. But for the purposes of tonight, I think that should give some bit of a background. There's also, if I look at our slide in September 2015, we held a wānanga, and Raukawa and Maniapoto, I can't remember who was there. A lot of the families from the tupuna who were involved in the in defending the pā were involved in the wānanga. And we discussed aspirations for the future of the site. And we also discussed the outcomes of the national hui held in Mōkai in 2011. An initial proposal was put forward and drafted with our agreement and Raukawa's agreement. And that initial proposal really focused on ensuring that the tupuna who were part of the action were named on the deed of title if we got to that point down the road. And it seemed an appropriate way to honour them and to give respect to their sacrifice and to their deeds in the annals of our history. So, ko tēnā. I'll best leave it there.
Ka pai o tēnā koe kawhia, and just to acknowledge the significant mahi that yourself and the O-Rākau Heritage Society have done behind the scenes to get us to the point where we are today. Just in terms of since then, so we've been working with our huanga in Ngāti Raukawa and in Waikato as well. And so one of the things that we've done since 2015 is we've updated and refined that proposal in order to achieve those aspirations that we set out. So that's something that we've been working alongside both of them. So Vanessa in terms of Raukawa, Rahui in terms of Waikato, to get to us to a point where we are today. And so just really keen to provide the opportunity tonight to update everyone and to have your feedback as well.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Kawhia. Excellent backgrounders to where we are today. And today, as you can see in the slide, the aim is to see the return of the site from the Crown. That doesn't mean that they just give it back to us, but we need to ensure that there is a recognition in that site, which includes all groups connected to the site. So our aim this evening is to give you that background and then move in to where this journey is taking us. On to the next slide. So the proposal is intended to be inclusive and to recognise that different perspectives of the battle and whenua will exist, that all of those perspectives are equally valid and equally important for those that hold them. There is not just one story. There are a number of stories that require being told. So the first part of the proposal has to do with the tupuna title. So in that, we want to see an arrangement where the site is vested in the names of all tupuna connected to the battle and the land. So in that part of the proposal, as Glenn has said, we've had joint support from Raukawa and Maniapoto, with us Ngāti Maniapoto, as kaitiaki of the title arrangements. In that respect, we propose the establishment of a management governance group to hold responsibility for the site, and that group be comprised of representation from groups of tupuna and representatives of tupuna connected to the site. We propose with the Crown that they pass a legislation that recognises the national importance of the battle site.
And so just to go through in terms of the journey to date, so we've worked alongside Raukawa, we've worked alongside Waikato, and we've also reached out to other iwi and groups whose tupuna may have been present there at the battle, the likes of Ngai Tūhoi and others. We've kept them updated as we've progressed as well. And those iwi have expressed initial support for what we're proposing here. They're very supportive of what we're intending to do, and that's been something that's come through quite strongly. What we've also been doing is we've really been pushing the Crown to recognise the return of the whenua. And so working alongside or over the other side of the table with Te Arawhiti, to make sure that those arrangements, those things that Matua Tom has just set out, we're able to bring those to fruition. It's been something, as you would have picked up from Kawhia's kōrero, this is something that has been happening or been building up for a long time now, and we're continuing to push the Crown to make sure that it's something that we can get done as soon as possible.
Kia ora, Glenn. In progress at the moment, this is my slide, karema, drafting of a unique legislation that recognises the national importance of the battle site is quite an important provision moving forward. And it will provide the legal mechanisms to implement the tupuna title that we've spoken about. As part of this, to move forward, we need to collect tupuna names of those tupuna that we know of in our oral history and in the public record who were at the 3-day siege, who participated in the siege, and or who are connected to the whenua. That's our process tonight. And then the next phase is establishment of a management governance body a bit further down the track.
Thank you, Kawhia. So the primary purpose of this evening is to provide you with that backgrounder, but also we're very keen to hear from you regarding the tupuna who were present at the battle. We have some recorded, and in this respect, Paul Meredith and Robert Joseph have been particularly helpful. However, we know that some tupuna are not mentioned. What led them to be there? How that cordial has been handed down? Your understandings, our understandings of the history of the whenua and of the battle, and again, emphasizing how important every story that we can gather is equally treated with reverence and respected. If further tupuna are discovered to have been present at the site later on, there will be availability to add their names to the title in the future. So this gathering of those names doesn't end in this short space of time. We know that others will come as these kinds of things often do. So in order to register your tupuna names, head to the web page which is on the link below, fill in the form and click submit. It's that relatively simple. And for those of you who perhaps are a little less technology savvy, call on your mokopuna like I do. My mokopuna is 12 years old, and boy, she leaves me for dead on these machines. And she is always keen to show her grandfather up. So head to the webpage, get some help if you need it, to go to that webpage, which is in the link below, fill in the form, click submit. From there, our team will review each entry and may get in touch to confirm details that you might want to share with us.
Ka pai. So I just want to tautoko Michael Tom's comments there. So yeah, we're really keen to hear from you regarding your tupuna that were there at the battle site. And I see a comments just come in from Tanya, tēnā koe Tanya. Ask Te Arawhiti to undertake a search of the Waitangi Tribunal records. That's a really good point. And I'm sure between Paul and Dr. Robert Joseph, they will definitely take that into account. We continue to push the Crown so that they acknowledge those tupuna, and it's really important that we hear from you regarding them. I also just see the comment or the concern of Ain Sua in the chat that there's often a degradation of the narratives related to our wahine tupuna and our pūrākau. And look, just really encourage you, if there are, wahine who that were present at the battle, to let us know so that we ensure that they are similarly recorded as well. Really keen, though, at this point in time, if you do have any questions, please send them through. Send them through in the chat, and we can look to address them as part of this presentation. We're really keen to ensure that people really understand the process, and if you do have any questions, just, again, encourage you to pop them in the chat. I'll hand over to Kawhia shortly, but then we'll come back and we'll look to address any questions if there are any in the chat. Norera, I'll hand over to you, Kawhia.
Ngā mihi, Glenn. I'm just going to quickly go over the program for this year's commemoration, Rā Maumahara. At this stage, it's Saturday, the 1st of April, on the battle site, and we'll commence at 9 a.m. with a mihi mihi. Then we'll have some keynote speakers address the hui. We'll have karakia Māori, karakia Karaiputure, and then we'll finish that part with laying of pare kawakawa, as we've done in previous years, and a kai to finish. This is our normal annual program that we've been running with for the last, since 2010. So as you can see, it's quite simple. It is a simple thing, but it's an important thing that we continue to uphold the memory of our collective tupuna who were involved in the 3-day siege at O-Rākau. Kia ora mai.
Kia ora kawhia. I'm just checking, see if there are any new questions come through. Please send them through if you do have them. Otherwise, as is noted there, we've got the email address partai@tnn.co.nz. So if following the presentation tonight you do have any further questions that spring to mind, don't hesitate to send them through. You've got that website address as well, which I see has been put in the comments. If you want to add your tupuna names to that, just go along to that. But please do, if you do have any further questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. Haven't seen any come through in the last minute or so. So I think we are up to date. Oh, there is one there that's come through from Tia Ormsby, just asking if there are any wahine involved in the committee. So this is obviously a part of the Te Nehe Nui kaupapa, or it's one of the kaupapa, and obviously we've got Bella and others, other trustees on the board for that as well. Just check. Kapai Ray. So one's come in here in time to come. Who covers the update on the title and when tupuna are presented? Cost-wise, she's got there. Yep, that's a really good point. So we're working through with Te Arawhiti how that process will work. That will be set out in the legislation. As Matua Tom has mentioned, though, what we want to really ensure is that if there are names that are discovered in the future, there's an opportunity for those to be added. So we're still working through the logistics in terms of that. But definitely that's something that we want to make sure is able to happen as well.
We might add that the committee doesn't just consist of Ngāti Maniapoto, Ngāti Raukawa, so Vanessa and Kataraina are also part of this committee. And then with the Rahui and his Himaima are also part of the mix. Any comment, Paul?
And just encourage everyone to, if they do have tupuna, to submit, and we'll be definitely taking up Tanya's good idea, not just looking at the Royal Porto inquiry, but other inquiries for those tupuna. But yeah, our focus though is on Maniapoto tupuna and Waiho Mate and I rātou iwi to submit their names. But yeah.
There's a question I see which has just come in from Ariana. Were any other approaches discussed before landing on vesting in tupuna names? I mean, Kawhia, you might be best to address this. I think it's one of the things, though, that we wanted to ensure that, we recognise and acknowledge all of the tupuna who were present there at the time. Hence why looking to include all of their names on the title, and noting, though, that if, for instance, in the future other names are discovered and research clarifies those, that there's a ways and a means to be able to update the title as well. But Kawhia, you might have some further whakaaro on that as well.
Thank you, Glenn. If my memory serves me well, I think there are a range of mechanisms that were canvassed back in 2015, but the general consensus of the hui, the wānanga, was that a tupuna title captured the essence of what we were seeking to do, which was to enshrine the tupuna to the place so that they will always be associated with the place, rather than to leave it as a very casual mechanism. To enshrine their names in the title seemed to be the most worthiest approach we could do out of our deep respect for them. And that's how we landed there. But there were other options canvassed. Kuina.
Ka pai. We've got a pātai, tēnā koe te whanaunga, Amelia. So Amelia has asked, when you ask of tupuna included in the battle, do you also ask of the other tribes who participated in the battle as well? The answer is yes. Yep. So we're making sure that we're keeping those other iwi regularly updated in terms of what's proposed, and we're asking that all of those who participated are able to record their tupuna as well. Obviously, at the moment, we're just reaching out to our Ngāti Maniapoto huanga, whanaunga, but certainly if there are others that you're aware of, please also let us know. And I also saw a question come in from Kere Edmonds. How do we check if the names of tupuna have already been submitted to avoid double ups? That's a good question. What I would encourage you to do, it's a really straightforward process. If you do know the names of those tupuna, just get them in for now. We will work with the team behind the scenes to see if there's a way we can bring those up so that you can avoid double ups. But it's really straightforward. Only takes a minute, so I would encourage you to avoid them being missed off, to just get them in. We've got a question here from Tanya. Have you also included Raukawa ki te tonga? Yes, they are also kept abreast of where things are at. And again, all iwi that were there, we're asking them to let us know their tupuna names as well. We've got one that's come through from Josh Tahu. Tēnā koutou ko te mihi tuatahi, kia koutou e toro atu ana, te mihi kia koutou mō koutou mahi. Nā reira, my question is, will and can these stories we receive and find justification for be shared just a personal interest? I might throw that over to someone else on the panel. I'm not quite sure what that question is asking. Can the stories we receive and perhaps the final justification be shared? Yes. So look, maybe Paul, that's something you can address in terms of the names that come through. Obviously, we need to justify them in some way, or check those off. Maybe you can address that point.
Yeah, and I've been just picking up on Kiri's point. I think if I wouldn't worry about double ups, because there's multiple sources supporting that tupuna's presence. That's great. I mean, we're lucky that we have a collection of narratives from Maniapoto that were there that was collected by James Cohen, and we have, that puts us off a good start. But so we'll be. I'm not sure about the justification. I think you might want to talk about this, Tom. But if there's an oral account of the tupuna was there, then then to some extent we need to trust that oral account. But again, we'll be looking at the other records too, if it supports it. But if there's an oral account, I think we'll accept that. You got thoughts on that, Tom? It was a good sort of question.
Thanks, Paul. We've stated at the very beginning that we want. We said at the very beginning that we want to hear the stories. We want to be able to share the stories, and we want those stories to be accepted and recognized as part of family oral history. Now, the truth or otherwise of kōrero is again something that will stand the test of time. But and there will be challenges of some kōrero, but what we want is to collate as much of this as we possibly can to get as broad and as big a picture as we possibly can, so that when we take this forward into our future, that breadth of understanding can be shared with our future. Thank you for these questions, and also thank you for the suggestions that are coming through from people as well.
Yes, I see there's a question coming from Ain Sewer. Could doing this wrap us up with an inability to deploy rangatiratanga over this land related to council restrictions, etc., requiring all descendant agreements whenua use? No. So essentially, we want to recognise the tupuna that were there during the battle, and so their names will be recorded on the title. But separate to that, there will be established a management or governance committee that will be looking after the whenua on a day-to-day basis. So no, it's not like you will need to get the sign-off from the descendants of all of those tupuna that were there, but it's a recognition on the title recorded there forever and a day of their involvement in that battle. Next question, Reo Piki, tēnā koe. Is there a time frame to get our tupuna names in? Look, we would encourage you to get those names in as soon as possible. We're continuing to have robust discussions with the Crown. We're quite keen to ensure that we progress this mahi as soon as possible. As well as that, though, allowing that mechanism so that if in the future there is further names of tupuna discovered, that we're able to add those in as well. So look, I'll just encourage you to, as soon as you possibly can, get them in, noting, of course, that no one's going to be sort of missed out later down the track. Oh, I think you're on mute, Tom.
We've reached a point where suggestions and questions have reached a natural conclusion. But if there are others, please be prepared to... Thank you, Ray. Yes, be prepared to pose those questions, share those thoughts on the pātai, on the Tenehenehe Nui Trust website. But gentlemen, if we might just go around the circle and start with Glenn, then to Paul, to Kawhia. If you've got any last closing remarks, and then let's close with the karakia. Over to you, Glenn.
Tēnā koe, Tom. I just want to thank you all for coming along tonight. As Matua Tom has mentioned, we are keen to hear from you, so please do jump on that link that's been put in the comments. If you do have those tupuna names, we'll continue to keep you regularly updated in terms of progress. Otherwise, hopefully might see some of you at the commemoration on the 1st of April, if not before. Kia ora koutou.
Tautoko, I'm looking forward to learning of the stories of those tupuna. I think there was an estimate of somewhere between 50 and 100 maniapoto that were there, including wahine and tamariki. So looking forward to learning more about the O-Rākau through our family histories. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, everybody. I'd just like to thank Paul and Robert for their research, which has really been quite an important platform for us to move forward on. And had it not been for that research, I would never have known, to be honest, that my own tupuna are actually associated with the lands at O-Rākau. So Paul and Rob, thank you very much for that. And I would also encourage everyone to make a submission and get that information to our team as quickly as you can. And we'll see you on the 1st of April if you're there. If not, we'll see you another day.
Nō reira, tēnā koutou, Kawhia, Glenn, Paul, huri noa. Just as a closing thought, this karakia manga rewi maniapoto shared with James Cohen, which Cohen recorded in his book, The New Zealand Wars. In the departure from O-Rākau, manga told Cohen that when he got outside the pā, he recited a Christian karakia. And that karakia says, "O Lord Jehovah, save me. Visit not this sin upon me." Following that with the prayer to remove and forgive his sins or transgressions that he and his relatives might have been guilty of in the past, he stumbled. And then he reverted to an ancient invocation, which was often used by those in flight from a battle to affect those in pursuit, causing those in pursuit to stumble and cease their pursuit. It's probably appropriate for us to finish with that karakia as we move in this journey from where we have been and where we might be with this very important part of our history, not just as Ngāti Maniapoto and the other iwi that were present at the Parehura, but also for the whole of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Nō reira, e hoa tahungi a hau kawe whakaheke a tēnei hara ki runga i a hau. Wetea mai te whiwhi, wetea mai te hara, wetea mai te tawhito. Wetea kia mā taratara tawhito te rangi tētai. Tupe runga, tupe rara, tupe haha. Ko nā koe tū mai ai ki konei au rere ake ai, rere, huru, huru, rere ānewa, a te rangi, hou. Kia ora tātou katoa. Ka kite a te tahi o āperire.